Hello, everyone. This is James Song here. Nice to see you again. Welcome back to my video. Today, we have listening lesson for the TOEFL test. So let's get started right away. So there's nothing on the screen, just empty page for me to write notes today because we are covering listening section. As you probably know, listening section of TOEFL test, you cannot see the questions that you need to answer before listening to your listening passage first. So listening passage will be played and questions will not be given to you. So you can try to write notes, or you can just concentrate listening to the listening passage and remember. And after the listening passage is finished, only then questions will appear on the screen one by one, and you can answer the questions by using your notes and lock in the answer and click next question to solve questions per passage, okay? So let's listen to the passage and make some notes. So today we are covering conversation part of the TOEFL listening test. Here we go. I suggest you write notes with me, obviously, to check your skills and do a note-taking practice, and you can check and compare your notes with mine. So let's do some note-taking. Here we go.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a library employee.
Excuse me, I received a letter that I'm supposed to return a book that I checked out back in September. It's called Modern Social Problems. But I'm writing my senior thesis, so I thought I was allowed to keep the book for the whole academic year.
So you signed up for extended borrowing privileges?
Yeah.
And we're still asking you to bring the book back?
Uh-huh. Do I really have to?
Well, let me check the computer. The title was Modern Social Problems?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's been recalled. You can keep it all year as long as no one else requests it, but someone else has. It looks like one of the professors in the sociology department, so you have to bring it back. You can check it out again when it's returned in a couple of weeks.
Well, what if the person renews it, and I really need it right now?
All of it? Or is there a certain section or chapter you're working with?
Well, there's one chapter in particular I'm working with, but why?
Well, we normally don't do this, but because of the circumstances, we can photocopy up to one chapter of the book for you. Why don't you do that for the one you're working with right now? And by the time you need the rest of the book, maybe it'll have been returned.
Oh, that would be great.
Do you have it with you?
No, it's in my dorm room. These are books I want to check out today. Is it okay if I bring that by in a couple days?
Actually, the due date is tomorrow. After that, there will be a $2 per day fine. But you need to return it today if you want to check out any books today. That's our policy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, not a lot of people realize that. In fact, every semester we get a few students who have had their borrowing privileges suspended completely because they haven't returned books. They're allowed to use books only in the library. They're not allowed to check anything out because of unreturned books.
That's not good. I guess I should head back down to the dorm right now.
But before you go, what you should do is fill out a form requesting the book back in 2 weeks. Then the person who requested it won't be able to renew it, and you'll get it back quickly.
I'll do that right now.
Okay, how did you go? Did you catch everything? You've got everything down that you wanted? You understood everything? You listened? Okay, let me help you. Let's go through it. So let's review and interpret my notes, okay? And by doing that, we will go through the whole passage in detail. So I can help you understand everything you heard, okay? All right, so students comes into the library and asks, do I have to return this book? It's title of the book. You don't have to remember. But he says he's asking whether he has to return the book because he thought he could keep it because he's using it for writing a thesis. He's writing, so he thought he could keep it until the end of this semester. So what does the librarian asks him? To have extended borrowing privileges. So basically, you just need to understand the meaning. So librarian is asking back, are you allowed to keep the book for a long time? And the man says, yes, I'm on extended borrowing privileges. And librarian double check, are we still asking you to bring it back? And student says, yes. So librarian says, let me check. And basically, you have to accept that you cannot write everything down. You just need to write the important details down so that you can remember and understand the whole passage and help you remember what you listened. And also you have to understand as you improve, if you understood, then even if you don't write everything down, you will be able to remember better, okay? So I guess biggest training you have to do with me while studying with me to improve your TOEFL skills, you have to improve your listening note-taking skills. So note-take a little faster, more efficiently, but also understand what you need to write down and what you don't have to write down at all because it's very minor, and what things you just have to work on to remember without writing it down. So librarian basically says, but if a person requests the book or recalled, then you have to bring it back, right? And it's recalled by professor, sociology professor. So librarian is saying, yes, you have to bring this book back. All right, so students is worried now, okay? Students ask back, what if the person renew the book? Renew means after first time of the borrowing period, they are trying to keep the book. So renew borrowing, right? So, student is worried, what if I cannot get the book back, right? And I need it right now to write thesis. And librarian says, do you need all of it? And student says, I'm working on one chapter right now. Then librarian says, we don't usually do this, but we can photocopy up to one chapter for you. So you can use that. And after 2 weeks, hopefully you can get the book back, right? So student says it's great. So librarian just asked, do you have a book with you, right? And the student says it's in my dorm room. And he has some new books he wants to check out right there. So he asks, can I check out these new books and bring the book back later? This book that he has to bring back. Can I check out some more new books now and bring this book that he has to return later? And the librarian basically says no by saying, it's actually due tomorrow. And after that, it will be $2 fines. And librarian says, you cannot check out these new books if you don't return the book that you have to return today. So basically, she's saying you have to return the book first to check out new books. And this is a prime example of you need to realize that you cannot write everything down, and you should be okay with it because you are working hard to understand the passage and only write down the important part. Because the librarian says a few students have lost their borrowing privileges. If you're trying to do a dictation of those words, you'll never be able to write everything down, and you lose the next part, and you'll snowball, and it will become a disaster, okay? So what librarian is basically saying is you cannot borrow unless you have to return first. So return the book that you have first. You're taken out first. So if you don't return the books you have, you cannot borrow, you cannot check out new books, and you just have to use the books in the library. So the man says, I better, get those books from the dorm now. So I better go to the dorm now, meaning get that book that he had to return. And also he needs to bring the book back to get the photocopy of one chapter. And also he needs to bring this book back to check out some new books, right? So when he says, I better go to the dorm now, it means he better get the book and return it now, today, okay? And the librarian very kindly offers some more help, some more service by asking him to fill out a form to request the book back in 2 weeks. So the person who borrows the book that he needs tomorrow cannot renew the book, meaning the person who borrowed this book that he needs has to return the books in 2 weeks. Has to, no choice. Meaning he can definitely get the books in 2 weeks' time, right? So librarian offer this service to the man and ask him to fill out a form, and he says, will do, right? So there you have it. How good is it? We basically covered the whole passage perfectly, right? So doing the question would be easy, as you will see. So now the TOEFL test will show you the questions that you need to solve one by one. So let's look at the questions. Why does the man go to the woman, the librarian? What's the reason? What's the reason man goes to talk to the librarian? A, to find out if he can get extended borrowing privileges. This is not true, because when the librarian asks, are you on extended borrowing privileges? The man says yes. So the man believes he is already on extended borrowing privileges. So he didn't go to the library to find out if he can get it. So if you chose A, basically you have chosen, the man went to the library to ask, can I get the extended borrowing privileges? That's A's answer. And it's not, because he says he's already on the extended borrowing privileges. B, to find out if he needs to immediately return a book he borrowed. Yeah, I mean, immediately, maybe a little bit questionable. So we'll look at C and D, but immediately can mean within 1 day. That could be kind of immediate, not within a month or within 2 weeks, okay? So B could still be right. And if you take out immediately, B is the perfect answer. So I'll keep B. C, to find out why he has to pay a library fine. This is not true, because if C is correct, basically you have chosen the man wants to ask and receive some explanation from the librarian that what's the reason I have to pay the fine. So that's totally off topic. D, to find out why his borrowing privileges have been suspended. Wow, very tricky. So D is saying, I'm on borrowing privileges, so I can keep the book, but why do I have to return it? Some student may interpret this answer choice like that, but that's not really true, because student is asking whether I have to return this book that I thought I could keep, right? And the librarian asks, are you on extended borrowing privileges? He says yes, but librarian explains, even implies even if you are on extended borrowing privileges, if somebody requests this book or recall this book, then you have to return it. So that's why librarian says you have to return the book. Okay, so that's why B is the answer, not D. Because B is saying the man goes to the library to ask, do I have to return this book? Okay, although blah, 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 blah. That's B. D is saying I'm on borrowing privileges, but why am I not on borrowing privileges anymore? Explain to me. That's D. Okay, that's the difference. So D is asking the librarian to explain to me why I am not on borrowing privileges. But that's not true because he is on extended borrowing privileges, but he still has to bring the book back because somebody requested it. So that's why D is not the answer. Yeah, tricky question. So question 1, B. Okay, question 2, moving on. What will the man probably do today? Okay, before looking at the answer choice, we know he will go to the dorm and get the book that he needs to return and return that book and get the photocopies and check out new books he wanted, maybe, and fill out the form to get the book back in 2 weeks. That's what he will do based on what we listened, okay? So let's go. A, get photocopies of a book chapter. Yeah, maybe, right? As long as he brings the book back, and whether he can do it or librarian does it for him, that get the photocopies within today. But the librarian asks him, do you have the book with you? Meaning, you know, she can or he can get the photocopy right now, right? So A looks very likely. B, find out who requested his book. He already knows. And that's irrelevant. It's not something he'll do today. Librarian already told him that it is requested by sociology professor. So B is out. C, borrow additional books. Maybe, because he said, I want to check out these books and can I bring the book back a little bit later? Actually, he says in a couple of days. Couple of days means, 2 days or 2-3 days, okay? Or even in a few days, it implies. But technically, a couple of days, a couple is 2. So, it implies 2 days, but, it actually means in a few days, right? So he actually wanted to get the new books checked out, right? But the librarian says, no, you have to return the books and then check out the books. So if he goes to the dorm and get that book and return that book and try to get a photocopy, then he is able to check out new books he wanted, right? So C is very likely. Okay. D, renew the book on modern social problems. He cannot, right? He has to return it because sociology professor will use it, right? And then will return the book in 2 weeks for him to hopefully get the book back in 2 weeks, right? So he needs to return it, not renew. He cannot renew, okay? Yeah, so answer is A and C. So question 2, answer is A and C. All right, moving on to question 3. What is the woman trying to explain when she mentions students who have lost their borrowing privileges? So it's this story here, right? Although we didn't write down word for word because we cannot, we won't be able to follow the whole passage, but we understood, right? The librarian tells a story about some students lose their borrowing privileges altogether. So meaning cannot check out the books because they did not return the book. So basically the important detail here is you need to return the book to get the books out. So if you want to borrow, you need to return. You do not return the books, you cannot borrow the books out, right? So that is what woman is trying to explain to the man, okay? So why the man should not photocopy, it has nothing to do with whether photocopy or not, okay? So B, the reasons of one of the library's policy, it's not the reason, it's explaining the policy itself, right? So, you know, the reasons for one of the library policy, if you chose B, you've chosen the answer that is something like, we have the policy that you have to return the book in order to check out new books. And the reason we have this policy is because we lost too many books in the library. So that's the reason. So we are not talking about the reason, okay? We're just talking about the policy, what you need to do to borrow the books. You have to return it first. C, what will happen if the man does not return the book? Yeah, possibly, because he wanted to check out new books and librarian says, oh, no, hold on, you cannot because you have to return the book first. So librarian, who is woman in this passage, is trying to explain to him what will happen to him if he does not return the book first. What will happen to him? What will happen? He will not be able to check out new books. So C looks very strong. D, the reason, it's not explaining the reason. The reason the man has to fill out a form, that's irrelevant. It's a good information, and it's even in the listening passage. However, this is not answering the question, okay? So question is about this part, okay? Not this part, is asking this part. So D has nothing to do with it. So question 3, the answer is C. Question 4, how does the man probably feel at the end of the conversation? Let's look at the answer choices. I'm a little bit lost what is the question referring to, implying. Okay, let's look at answer choices. Annoyed that, I don't think he's annoyed, okay? He's like, okay with it because he knows he can get the book in 2 weeks, and within 2 weeks, he can just get the photocopy of one chapter and use that chapter to work on his thesis, right? So I don't think he's annoyed. Annoyed that he has to pay a fine, irrelevant. Moving on. B, upset. I don't think he's upset. Upset that he's losing his library privileges. He's not losing his library privileges at all. There's no privileges he's losing, okay? He can keep check out new books as long as he can return the book first or returns the book. And he is still on extended borrowing privileges. But even if he's on that privilege, if somebody requests the specific book, then he has to bring it back. So he's not losing any library privileges at all, right? So B is wrong. C, glad that, so kind of happy. I don't think it's like overly joyed, happy, but glad that he can keep the book for 2 more weeks. He cannot. Okay, he can get the book back if he fills out the form in 2 weeks. He can get the book back in 2 weeks, but he cannot keep the book. He has to return it. So D should be the answer. Let's check. Less worried about having to return the book. This is exactly right. Right? Because at first, he was a little annoyed or worried, right? He's like, I need it now. I need the book now, right? I need to, can I change color here? Yes, I can. So, you know, I need it now to write the thesis, right? What if the man who borrows renew it? You know, I'm in trouble. I need a book as soon as possible. I need it right. I need it now. But librarian offers to photocopy up to 1 chapter. And the man says, great. Okay, because he says he is working on 1 chapter right now, right? And if he fills out the form, he can get the book back in 2 weeks, right? So the attitude must have changed, right? So he's very worried to less worried because he can use the photocopy and he can get the book back in 2 weeks. So D is perfect. D is perfect. So question 4, the answer is D. All right, moving on to question 5. Why does the woman say this? So we need to listen to the question file. Let's listen.
Why does the woman say this?
And we're still asking you to bring the book back?
Okay, that's the question. So what does woman says? So we are still asking for the book back, right? Okay, so if you remember, if you look at the notes, where was this part said, right? The woman asked back to, when student asked, do I have to return this book? I thought I could keep it. Librarian says, are you on extended borrowing privileges? The man says, yes. And after that, the librarian asks, so are we still asking the book back, right? So are we still asking the book back? So it's a confirmation question. So, okay, so if you are on extended borrowing privileges, I got that. But is the library still, although you are on extended borrowing privileges, are we still asking the book back? Okay, so just to make sure what the situation is, okay? So let's look at the answer choices. A, to make sure, confirm, she understands what the man's problem is. Yeah, exactly, right? So are we still, so your problem is you thought you could keep this book because you're on extended borrowing privileges, but are we still asking the book back? Is that right? Is that right? Is this the problem for you? Right? So A looks perfect to me. Let's check B, to encourage the man to return the book to library soon. This is a funny one, right? So basically, if you chose B, you are saying like, the woman says, are we still asking the book back? Means like, come on, do the right thing, return the book as soon as possible. Irrelevant. Check whether the man has already returned the book. Makes no sense. So if you chose C, basically you're saying, the woman's saying, so you returned the book or not? Have you already returned it or not yet? So C is irrelevant. D, to see if the man is familiar with the library policy. This is ridiculous. So yeah, she's just trying to confirm, make sure this is the situation right now, right? Yeah. So question 5, the answer is A. Okay, so that's it for this passage, this listening passage and its lesson. It's a conversation passage, so there are only 5 questions. And you'll see in my listening lecture passage that is consists of lecture, not conversation. There are 6 questions, okay? So I hope you learn something valuable, and let's keep going. So that's it for this conversation listening passage lesson, and I'll come back with some new listening lecture. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.